58 years ago, 5 Navy planes took off from Florida and were never seen again, earning infamy for the legendary Bermuda Triangle. But the world is wide, and today's list will reveal places natural and perhaps supernatural, scarier than the Bermuda Triangle. Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us on Top 10. My name is Raechel Fisher, and join me as we review our top 10 places scarier than the Bermuda Triangle. Let's get into it. Dive in. Number 10, Aokigahara. Perhaps it's the density of the forest or the sheer mass size of it, but for whatever reason, Aokigahara forest draws in lost souls like a black hole. The forest has a dark reputation due to the amount of bodies that have been found from those who took their own lives, and we aren't just talking 1 or 2, we are talking in the hundreds. Since the 1970s, police and volunteers trek through the trees to search and return bodies to their families for proper burials. The forest is presumably haunted, and I can understand why. Many report an eerie silence as a chasm of emptiness, like the forest swallows up even sound itself. The amount of people who enter the forest to take their own lives is so high that they have patrols specifically to speak to and monitor all guests. Though self-harm is not supported in Japan now, the act of taking one's life doesn't have the same stigma like it does over here. Seppuku was a samurai ritual that went all the way back to Japan's feudal era and was considered an honorable way to die. It is not practiced anymore, but it has left a mark, with Japan having one of the highest rates of this kind of death. But still, no one can quite explain the mystery that draws so many to end their life here. Number 9. Hoia Baciu Forest. Dubbed the creepiest forest in Transylvania because, duh, it's in Transylvania. There's obviously like vampires and werewolves running amok. Get your stakes, everyone! Hoia Baciu Forest is known as the Bermuda Triangle of Romania. So many weird things have happened, including tales of a shepherd who disappeared along with his flock of 200 sheep. How do you lose that many? And a girl who wandered into the forest never to be seen again until 5 years later she reappeared, not having aged a day. The reason the forest is haunted is unclear, but the most common story is that around 100 peasants died in the forest and now haunt the grounds. The feeling of being watched is a common sensation, as well as visitors report leaving with unexplained rashes and a sudden anxiety. Who knows if the stories are true or whether it is simply legend that keeps visitors wary. Either way, it's not called the Bermuda Triangle of Romania for nothing. Number 8. Flannan Isle. In December 1900, a disappearance at the Flannan Isles in Scotland earned the islands its notoriety. Atop the island sits a lighthouse manned by no one. When the Hesperus, a ship with a lighthouse replacement, arrived, they discovered the 3 men, Thomas Marshall, James Duckett, and Donald MacArthur, who were staying there, had completely disappeared. All of their belongings had been left behind, including plates full of meat, potatoes, and pickles. The clock had stopped. Like, who would leave pickles behind? Not me! The clock had stopped and there was an overturned chair, and 2 of the 3 oilskin coats belonging to the 3 men were gone. The gate and the door were firmly shut. Before the Hesperus arrived, there was a pretty harsh storm, so it was hard to imagine one of the 3 to not bring their coat with them if they left, though they all shouldn't have left anyway. 1 man was always supposed to man the station. After some investigation, they presumed the men had been swept into the sea while securing mooring lines, but there's always a but. Doubt still remains due to lack of evidence and bodies. Today, anyone who works the lighthouse reports hearing screams and the calling of the 3 men's names. See, we're starting superstitious, we're starting there, and then it's gonna get real. Maybe, we don't know. Let's see. Number 7, Hoer Verde. How do 600 people disappear without a trace? A question no one has ever answered. In 1923, a group of travelers were passing by the village of Hoer Verde in Brazil, expecting to see a flurry of villagers going about their daily life, but to their shock, it was entirely abandoned. There was no evidence of violence, save for a gun that had been fired the day before they were found. Due to the political unrest of the country at the time, many assumed that the people had fled in fear of the guerrillas. But despite national unrest, none of the inhabitants ever came forward. Shops were left open, clothes and food behind, but no trace of struggle or bodies were found. The only thing they found was a rushed written sentence on the chalkboard of the school that simply said, "There is no salvation." Whoa! Crazy! Number 6. The Bennington Triangle. Some suspect a malicious killer while others suspect something more or less than human, but who is really to say? Located just beside an old abandoned logging town in Vermont, the Bennington Triangle achieved notoriety after a string of disappearances occurred in 1945 and onwards. The first was Mitty Rivers, an experienced guide who led a group of hunters around the area, but not a trace of him was ever found despite a 300-person search. The next to go missing was 18-year-old Paula Weldon. Despite an 1,000-people search mission, plus aircraft scouting and a $5,000 reward, she was never heard from again. Then there was James E. Tedford, who disappeared into thin air while aboard a bus riding through Bennington, his luggage and timetable still on the seat. The list of unanswered questions around this area goes on and on, but one thing is for certain, something or someone in this area isn't a friend to even the most experienced hikers or even just the common bus rider. So be careful if you venture there. Number 5. North Yungas Road. One of the most treacherous pathways in the world, the North Yungas Road in Bolivia should be the road less traveled. It stretches and winds perilously for 50 miles through the Amazon rainforest at the slightly average, definitely not too bad, height of 15,000 feet. Yeah. Easy breezy. Not only is it incredibly high, you're pretty much on your own. There are practically no guardrails and you only have around 12 feet of space. Oh, and did I mention that you are nearly blinded by rain and fog? Yeah. It has been nicknamed the Death Road for a reason, as it has racked up 200 to 300 deaths per year. It's honestly a wonder how people still use it. Never mind disappearing, we know exactly where they'll end up if they fall 15,000 feet. Splat on the ground. Still, the bravest of the brave mountain bikers and hikers attempt the mortifying feat, many contributing to the annual number. Number 4. Snake Island. I personally don't mind snakes. I actually think they're kind of cute. They're like boop ropes. Boop. That's what they do. But even I don't want to get caught even a mile away from this island. Snake Island is exactly as it sounds, an island entirely covered in some of the most poisonous snakes in the world. Located 90 miles off the coast of Sao Paulo, some studies report that there are 5 snakes per square meter covering the island, so like you couldn't walk without encountering at least 1 or 5. It is so dangerous that people are banned from visiting due to the occupation of the golden lancehead vipers. Lancehead vipers are incredibly poisonous. These lancehead vipers are actually 5 times more poisonous than the ones on the mainland. Crazy. Lancehead vipers are incredibly poisonous, their venom having a neurotoxic quality that can kill a human within an hour if untreated. The snakes are also hyper evolved, hence the 5 times as poisonous, given that there are no predators threatening their existence on the island. They've even learned how to jump from trees to attack birds and eat them. So yeah, if you hate snakes, or even if you think they're cool, this is definitely an island you never want to end up on. Before we reach our top 3, remember to take a moment to help us out and press that like, subscribe button, because we love you for it, and virtual hug. So nice. Number 3, Lake Nyos, Cameroon. Next up, we have a lake that is responsible for killing 1,700 people. What? Located in West Africa, it is deceptively beautiful. Beneath the water, there is a pocket of magma, aka like a secret volcano, that leaks carbon dioxide into the lake. The CO2 stays dissolved in the water due to the pressure of the 650 feet of water on top of the magma secretions, like a pop bottle with an invisible lid, until one day that lid popped off. On August 21st, 1986, the lake abruptly depressurized and CO2 exploded into the air. The massive cloud of CO2 raced down the hill towards the village below and suffocated 1,700 people and animals. Almost nothing survived. Today, pipes are used to siphon the CO2 out from the bottom of the lake in order to prevent this from happening again, but the lake still remains a danger to those who live near it. Number 2, Naples, Italy. Surprised? Why on earth would such a beautiful place be on the list of scarier places than the Bermuda Triangle? Well, one word: Pompeii. Remember Pompeii? Of course you wouldn't, you weren't there. But you definitely learned about it in history. The massive volcano that asphyxiated and burned alive the entire population of Pompeii. Well, Naples is right next to that very same volcano. Good old Vesuvius. And the very same thing will happen again to the 650,000 people who live there. We just don't know when. It's also not the only volcano that threatens the area, and some might even be worse than anything they could expect from Vesuvius. Still, the city is filled with people who live by the words, "Oh well, it will never happen to me." But to me, that type of uncertainty doesn't sound like a place I'd like to live. Maybe visit, but even then, it would be that time the volcano erupted. Like, it would be the time I'm like sitting with a glass of wine and it just pfft. Well, cheers to that. And last but not least, one of the largest accidental mass grave sites in the world, like bigger than the Bermuda Triangle. This is actually scarier out of all the list. So it's perfect for number one, duh. The Alaska Triangle. Like the Bermuda Triangle, this mysterious area has gobbled up one lost soul after another. How many exactly? Well, from the 1980s alone, around 16 to 20,000 people have disappeared without a trace. The most famous case which caught national attention was when the plane of Majority Leader Hale Boggs vanished in 1972. Even one of the largest search and rescue operations found no trace of the plane. They searched for 39 days, used 40 military aircrafts and 50 civilian planes to cover the area, and still nothing. No sign of wreckage, debris, or human remains. And this is not the only time this has happened. In the 1950s, 44 passengers and the pilot disappeared, and in the 1990s, a Cessna 340 carrying 4 people also vanished. No wreckage, debris, or any bodies were recovered from either case. Roughly 4 missing person reports are filed for every 1,000 people in Alaska. Some insist that the crafts were simply buried by nature, while others suspect a more supernatural explanation. Either way, somewhere within this 32,000 square kilometers, there are bodies stacked on top of each other, never to be found. And that was our list of top 10 places scarier than the Bermuda Triangle. If you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date. Do you think we missed any on our list? Let us know. We take your opinion into account. I've been your host, Raechel Fisher, and until next time, stay safe and take care.